and welcome again to my series, The Pain and Pleasure of Living a Life on Purpose. My name is Philippa Ross. I'm an enthusiologist and eco-warrior. Today I'm joined by Kim Knight, and I don't think I've ever come across anybody who is more qualified to talk about the pain she's been through in order to get to where she is today. Good morning, Kim. How are you?
I'm good. It's lovely to be with you.
Excellent, excellent. So you have a business, Kim Knight Health, and help people through chronic fatigue syndromes and pain. Have I got that right?
Well, people tend to know me for that.
Right.
That is something that I specialize in, but I do a lot more than that. Because what I've discovered, it's really interesting, is that whatever problem we have presenting in our life, and I know that you know this too, is that whatever problem we have presenting in our life, it could be a health issue, and it could be any health issue, or it could be an unhappiness issue, which could be something like, I'm in a bad relationship, I'm not being treated well, I hate my job, I can't get on with, XYZ family member. It doesn't matter what the situation is, but it's bringing us unhappiness. Also, I'm having problems financially, I'm depressed. Whatever the issue is, what I've discovered is that if you track back and back and back, the cause will be the same.
Right.
Now, and what I've also found is that usually illness is a furtherance of unhappiness. So if that unhappiness goes on for too long, then it will turn into something like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or a gut issues or even cancer.
So what have you been through in order, because I believe you've got about at least 10 years experience, you found yourself in that place, and so you've obviously acquired a shitload of skills over the years because you've tried so many different things. And as you said earlier, I have an understanding of where you're coming from, but we each have different strengths in different modalities and things, and so you've definitely found a modality that works for you and built a business around it.
I can't even remember the beginning of the question.
Okay, take us back. Never mind. Take us back on your journey. Was it 10 years ago or so? Because you actually trained in so many things to overcome the pain that you were in at the time.
Right. So, how did I get to where I am today? Actually, it's a 25-year journey, and the 10-year stint was the 10 years that I was actually unable to work because I was too ill with chronic fatigue. But overall, the whole thing started in terms of when I first started getting unhappy and unwell. That was, 25, 30 years ago.
Wow.
So that was when I started. And the first thing that I noticed, although I didn't even notice it myself, my mother pointed it out to me, was that she thought I was depressed, and I'd never heard of the term. Didn't even know what it was. And that set me on an exploration of what is depression, and then finding out that discovering that I wasn't as happy as I thought I was, because I thought I was happy. I was drinking, I was going out partying, I had a boyfriend. I'm happy, aren't I? But I discovered that actually no, I really wasn't. But what happened as a result of then starting to explore all that stuff, it got worse. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And so a whole heap of stuff came up from my unconscious, awareness, starting to become aware of emotions that I'd suppressed for many years, and the unhappiness that I'd suppressed for many years. And that led to the depression getting very, very bad, and, to the point that it was, categorized, if you like, as clinical depression,
right,
as opposed to just depression. And then that led to what is commonly called a mental breakdown, which, as I discovered later, is actually a breakthrough in consciousness. It is the breaking down of the old, and literally it is the breaking down of old mental concepts which no longer serve, because I was living a lie. I was living sort of through my parents' beliefs and values, rather than my own. And so there was this whole breakdown, literally, where I was in hospital for a couple of weeks and couldn't think, couldn't look at the television, couldn't read, because my brain was literally breaking down.
And did you feel shut down and kind of disconnected from everything?
Well, obviously I was disconnected from myself, but I had to go inwards. It was like my life and my higher self, or whatever you like to call it, was forcing me to go inwards. And this is the problem, is that most of us, we spend our life going outwards, and we actually at some point have to turn and come inwards. And so then I went through the whole process of going through that and recovering from that, and then working out what had actually happened, because, you know, from a doctor's standpoint, it's a bad thing. You know, you're breaking down, you're having a nervous breakdown. But as I said, I discovered that actually it was a really positive thing. But it took me about 7 years to understand what had actually happened in my consciousness, because not only had there been a breakdown, there'd been a breakthrough, and a breakthrough to a new level of understanding about life, which I had no concept of before. So all of a sudden I had this much deeper understanding of what is life about. And it's not just about, sorry?
How was it when you were, obviously if you were in hospital and you had the clinical depression, you were working with doctors, how helpful were they in helping you have an understanding of your inner self?
Zero.
So how did you actually hook into this for yourself? Was it just an inner pulling?
How did I hook into understanding myself?
Yeah, understanding there was a lot more to this. It was a breakthrough as opposed to a breakdown.
Well,
I mean, it's a really...
That was what took me several years to piece together.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that came in one moment, in one day, in 1 week. It literally was a matter of, after that, I started to explore other avenues of health. But it wasn't actually until quite a few years later after that until I actually got very sick again, that I started to explore, you know, natural therapies and do a lot of personal development workshops. Yeah. And then it was then when as I did those things, that I started to understand myself. So it really was a day at a time, piece by piece, putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, which has literally taken years.
And that's a really good point. It's actually, we're in such a quick fix society nowadays. You know, it's like pop the pill and we're all better sort of thing. And it actually takes an awful lot to sit in that pain, discomfort, and work yourself up. So each time you're kind of getting to a higher vibration and understanding of yourself. But actually, what was it in you that gave you the strength to carry on?
That's a really good question, because I remember once I was having a session with one of the ladies that I used to go to for healing. And I was, you know, because I've spent so many times being right at the bottom of that pit, just feeling like I just don't want to go on. I don't know how I can go on. I can't cope. It's all too much. It would be easier to die, and really being in that place, but not at the place where, okay, I'm going to take my life, but really understanding how people can get to that place of wanting to take their life, but somehow getting through it. And I was having this conversation with this lady one day, and she said, what is it that pulls you through? And I sort of stopped, because I never really thought about it, even though I kept on doing it. And I don't know, I think it's just some other strong part of me, and I don't know whether you want to call it soul, spirit, true self, but that's the only thing that I can think that it is. Because, you know, in Qigong, we talk a lot about the true self and the false self, or the true master and the false master. And our true self, in Chinese, it's called Shen. And you can't corrupt Shen. It is, you know, perfection, and it is original, and nothing can damage it. And we all have that. Yeah. And I think it's that part of it. And I don't know if you've ever seen that quote. Often it's shown with a picture of footprints on the sand, and it says, you know, who was it that carried you through your pain or something? Well, it would, you know, I can't quite remember the quote, but it's about that. It's that part of us, that unseen part of us, that somehow magically unseen pulls us through. And so now I've learned now also to, rather than being in pain, is to be experiencing it perhaps, but observing it at the same time. So it's developing the witness so that we don't get totally caught up in the pain at the time it's happening. We may be having, going through some emotional stuff and clearing some emotions, or we may, be feeling really bad or feeling really sorry for ourselves. But at the same time, and I'm sure you know what I mean by this, is that there's this witness observer going, oh, that's interesting, you're doing that again.
Yes.
And also that witness observer can say things like, this too shall pass. I've been here before and I'll get out again. I know it feels utterly crap right now, but I've been here before and I know that I'll come through it. I don't maybe know how long it's going to take for me to come through it, but I'm just going to trust that I'll come through it. So it's okay.
It is that big trust thing, because one of the things as evolved human beings, unlike, I was thinking this morning as I was watching the bird and thinking how the seasons and everything have changed, and how they, to us humans, to me, how easily they go with the flow of nature and don't question it. Well, from a human point of view, I don't know that they don't, but they appear to. And because we're evolved with the brain, we tend to go right up there and in the head and start rationalizing as to why all these things, as opposed to trusting that process and actually, as you say, experiencing those emotions without trying to evaluate them in any form or other. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and there are so many different ways to deal with our stuff, and what I found is that the more skilled you get at being able to deal with your stuff, the quicker you can move through it. B, there starts coming a time when it's not even there anymore, or you can actually manage it without having to go into deep dark depths of despair. But that's a skill that is acquired over time through practice.
So how many different modalities did you experience as you went through?
Well, I did count up one day, and it was about 200.
Whoa.
Yeah. And a lot of, well, not a lot, I probably trained professionally in about 20. And initially I had no intention of being a professional therapist at the time. It was just purely because, I can help myself with that. And then I trained so much in a particular therapy that I actually ended up being certified in it. But it's got to the point now where, yes, I've trained in XYZ therapy, but really it's all gone into a melting pot. And I just bring out whatever ingredient is needed for, a particular client, plus creating my own, signature methods now.
Awesome. This is the point of the series. It's actually the pain that we go through. It's actually all about serving ourselves. And in that we can then help others and uplift others in the experience. But some people have a longer, more painful journey than others. Have you got a particular modality or two that you prefer for yourself?
Yes. Qigong. Qigong is one of my favorite exercises to use. Can you
explain it a bit more for people who don't a lot of people, I've heard of it, but the difference between, it's, explain it rather than me babbling on trying to do it.
Yeah, so Qigong is ancient Chinese exercises, but they're not physical exercises.
Right.
And it's useful to explain the term to understand what it is. Mm-hmm. So Gong means to cultivate, and Qi is, some people will say, well, it's just life force energy, but it's much more than that, because Qi is actually energy plus information. So the information is what impregnates that energy to make it what it is. And effectively, we are an energy being. We know through quantum physics that, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, we are an energy being. And so what is the information? Well, the information is all our conditioning and our beliefs and our programming and our patterning. We have positive patterning, negative patterning. That is the information. So when we do Qigong, what we're doing is we're upgrading and cultivating our Qi. Now, Qi is the fundamental life force, and it is the smallest particle of life force within a human being. It's a quantum level matter, but it's so small, it's quantum. And so when we change our Qi, or we change our energy, we change everything else. It's like a knock-on sort of domino effect in the body of affecting everything else at a cellular level, at a mental level, at an emotional level. So the thing that I love about Qigong is that, and it's not just the exercises, but it's the philosophy. And in particular, right now, I for the last few years, I've been training, well, actually it's only the last couple of years, because it's actually only brought to the world a couple of years ago, is a new system of Qigong, because there are many different types of schools of Qigong. Right. So the school that I'm studying the last couple of years is called Wangong, and it goes together with a system of philosophy called Ren Shui, which means human life science, which is the science of how to be a human being.
Wow.
Because we have to learn how to be a human being. It's like we don't get this user manual, and then we end up with a whole load of problems because we're not operating ourselves. And one of the big things is we're not operating ourselves in harmony with the laws of life. Yep. Like you were talking about the birds before. Yep. Yes, nature has laws. The universe has what we call laws of life, laws of nature, the laws of health. So in order to be healthy and happy, we have to know what those laws are and follow them. And I remember the first time I met the teacher the master Qigong teacher who created this system. I remember when I first walked into his room for an appointment, and I was just blown away, because I knew when I walked in, it's like, oh my goodness, I've met my Qigong teacher. And I'd literally 2 years before that said to myself, I want to meet an authentic Qigong master. Even though by that stage, I've been practicing Qigong for several years and had amazing results, I knew that I needed something else. And I knew I wanted a new teacher. And I walked into the room and I just knew that I'd met my teacher. And we had this session. And, you know, he basically said, you know, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you know. And then at the end of the session, he said, you need to learn the laws of life, and then you need to follow them. And I went back and I wrote, because I bought his book, you know, at the time, and I went back and I wrote it in the back of the book as soon as I walked out the room to remember what he said. And that's essentially what most people don't know. You know, we have laws in society. Yeah. If you break those laws, there are consequences. Yep. If you break laws of health and happiness, there are consequences. So I love the philosophy around it, but I also love the practice, and one of the most amazing things is that it gets you back into what is called a calm, relaxed, natural state. So what that means is the mind is calm, the body is relaxed, and those two together mean that we're in what is called our natural state, which means we're following the laws of life. And when we do that, then what happens is we start to experience a joy which starts to arise from within that has absolutely nothing to do with anything else external. It has nothing to do with whether we're happy about how our job is going, how much money is in the bank, whether we've got a nice car, nothing. It's totally internal. And so that is what it does, and does it very, very quickly. Like literally in 10 minutes, one can, you know, be experiencing that state. So that's one of the things that I love about it, because I spent many years very stressed, and I've had to do a lot of work to de-stress. And that is one of my key tools, a daily tool for keeping myself calm and relaxed and in a natural state.
Awesome. Sounds absolutely fantastic. So what are the particular laws of life that you were talking about? Are there too many to go into, or is there any that actually stick out, that one or two that could actually help people?
Well, the laws of life, that's a huge topic, and I don't know that I'm even qualified to talk about the laws of life, but I could talk about the laws of health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, if we look at, because again, it all follows nature, you know, it's right in front of us. So for example, we have seasons in nature. And so the season of summer is a outgoing season where things are busy, things are growing, whereas the season of winter is where everything goes in, the trees shed their leaves, the sap goes into the center of the tree, and the whole point of that is the tree is reinvigorating itself so that it can grow again the next season.
Yeah.
Well, in most people in our life, as we know, they do not live their life like that, whether it's on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a yearly basis, is that we're generally expected in society to keep going, because how many, 50 weeks of the year, and then you can have your 2 weeks off,
Yes.
But that's not balance. That's not yin and yang. So most people are aware of the yin-yang symbol. The yang is the active phase. The yin is the quiet, still phase. And we need this balance. And if we don't make that balance in our life, then life will make us have it. And usually it will make us have it by we get ill and taking us out. Yeah. And as my teacher says, if you don't get the lesson, then it'll take you out for good. You just die, right? So we have to have balance. So that is a law of life, a law of life, of health and life.
Absolutely. I mean, I can definitely assimilate that too. The oceans, and the moon phases, and it's the ebb and flow of life. And it's and people talk about flow, but it really is about, if you're caught in a wave, it's really hard to catch your breath if you're struggling actually in it and going against it, sort of thing. And so the easiest thing is to go with the flow of it, because it uses less energy. And I think another thing, because I think we were talking before we went on air about metabolism, and because I'm more of a night owl, and that's where my energy is, and so I actually find it sometimes quite hard to because I work that end of the day, and the normal world per se works the kind of 9 to 5 and up early sort of thing. It's there's a little parrot that in there saying that you need to be a part of this as well, and it's really accepting that, okay, this is the way that my metabolism is, that the way that I naturally flow better.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because one of the things that happens and I don't know if this applies to you or not, you can have a little think about this, is that what is normal, what is natural has become unnatural, and what is what is natural has become unnatural, and what is unnatural sometimes becomes natural, right? So for example, people can be very stressed and rushing around, totally, really, really busy, just totally in stress mode all the time, but for them that has become natural. And I was speaking with a client the other day, and we were going through, looking at trying to get more work-life balance. And she said, oh my goodness, people are always saying to me, oh my God, you're always busy. But to me, it doesn't seem like it. It just seems normal. Yeah. And this is very, very common. Yeah. So often what can happen is what we're doing is we think it's natural, but it's actually normal. And there's a difference. Natural is in harmony with the laws of nature, and nature, natural, those words go together, whereas normal is what's normal for us. And in Chinese medicine, which is why, I just love the Chinese philosophy, there's what they call the meridian timetable. So every 2 hours, a different meridian comes online. Yeah. So it's quite interesting to know that timetable and to understand it, because, for example, between 11 o'clock at night and 3 in the morning is the gallbladder liver meridian. Right. And as an element, that is wood. And it is related physiologically in our body to the nervous system. And our nervous system needs to be resting during that time in order for it to, because this is, it's that sort of wind down thing. Okay. Yeah. And if we don't rest our nervous system between 11 and 3, then usually there are going to be consequences the other 12-hour end of the day that we need to, so we might have to have a sleep in the afternoon, the other side of the day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because our nervous system, it needs that rest. And in theory, a human being should be asleep at that time, between 11 and 3. And actually, in theory, we should be in bed then before then, so that we're well fast asleep by 11 o'clock.
Right.
The earth element, so we're also, so if we go into the next element, so then we have 4 to 5, 6 to 7 is the metal element. And the metal element is the lungs, and it's our dream time. So we need to be having good sleep during that time so that we can dream and process, because we process our life psychologically, mentally, emotionally during that dream time. Then we have, so that takes us up to 7. Then we have 8, 9, 10, 11, which is the earth element, which is the stomach and the spleen. So that's why it's so important in the morning when we get up that we do nurturing things for ourselves in those first couple of hours. And we go for a walk, we do some qigong or yoga or whatever, meditation, and eat our breakfast, because we're setting our body up for the day so that it can function for us. Because we keep taking our body for granted, but it needs to be looked after. Yeah. And then we have like, what was that? That was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 is like this, the sun part of the day, when the sun is highest in the sky, the summertime of the day, because even we have seasons in a day. Yeah. And that's the time when we can do stuff, and we find that we have more energy, and then we can have a bigger meal at lunchtime, because our digestive system is more fired up to deal with our food at that point of the day. And then in some cultures, such as Italy and places, then they'll have a siesta. Yes, because usually
coming from England, sadly they didn't have it in England, but the rest of Europe did. Yes.
That's right. That's why if people like Italians, they go to bed late, they got to have the siesta in the afternoon. Yeah. And I lived in Italy for a year. Right. Everything would just close down. So that's 3, 4, so it's what, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have our social part of the day, which is 7, 8, 9, what is it? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The sort of social part and the wind down part of the day. So I find it quite good to think about that when I choose my times to get up and go to bed. And I find it really works, and I feel that it is working in harmony with the laws of nature. Wow. Obviously, maybe there are exceptions to that. Yeah. But one thing I found for sure, and it was funny because just before we started talking today, I was saying last night for the first time in I don't know how long, I went to bed really late, way past my normal bedtime. And I can feel the difference today in my body. Yeah. It is not as efficient and effective as when I go to my bed at my normal time, which is between 9 and 10.
Because you're kind of on that catch up, or I guess your body's trying to catch up, or it has to metabolize what it meant to go through.
Well, it goes back to this time, this very, very critical time between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock, where the nervous system needs to rest.
Right.
It needs the rest.
So does that have to be in sleep, would you say?
It could be meditation, but I think it's best in sleep. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Ah, fascinating. You learn something new every single day. Man, I knew about the elements and the clocks and things, but I hadn't appreciated the depth of it all. So yeah, maybe there's some adjusting for myself to be done on that side of things.
I don't know. I mean, we have to find what works for us, and that is the thing. We are all unique. Yeah. If it works for you and your health is great, then,
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the harm?
So you've obviously acquired all this. When did you realize that I appreciate it's an ongoing thing, always increasing our energy and upping the level of our health. But was there a point when you felt really good and well?
Well, what happened was it was about, because I had a turning point because I was ill with the chronic fatigue. I left work in 95 or 96. And I spent the next 5 years looking for answers, not getting anywhere. And then because I really thought I might die at that point, it just wasn't getting anywhere. I set off around the world because I thought I might only have a few months to live. And then but I was still searching. And then I had my turning point of understanding the connection between emotions and fatigue, and understanding that chronically blocked emotional energy creates exhaustion. And that was a turning point. And then I started to get some real concrete, useful tools to start processing and clearing emotional energy, which then started giving me my energy, clearing emotions, which then started giving me my energy back. And after about 2 years of doing that, I really started to feel a lot better. And I went back to work. And my previous job, which I'd left, had been a new career, which was film and television production. And it had been my dream career. And so I went back to get work in that industry, but it was really, really difficult. And I think the main thing was, for whatever reason, my face just didn't fit the industry.
Right.
You know, even though I really wanted to work in it, it's who you know, not what you know in that industry.
Yep.
And I really knew what I was. I mean, it's not that obviously people have to know, you know, their skill, but it really is, you know, who you know. And I just didn't seem to be getting in in that way. And after about a year of trying to, you know, get back in and only getting little bits of work here and there, I had to make a very sort of quite, at the time, devastating decision to walk away from my dream career. And then I went back to temping, because that was always my fallback, you know, working in admin in offices. And I was very good at it, but I didn't like it. And as a result of that, I went back into some of my old habits again, not looking after myself, and I burnt myself out again. And partly was because I wasn't looking after myself, and partly was because I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I got ill again. So then I was off work again for another about 2 or 3 years. And again, searching, trying more therapies, still continuing on with what I knew. Obviously, I was like way ahead of where I'd been the first time. But still, there were more lessons to learn about self-care and looking after myself. And then in 2006, I finally felt like I was about 95% better. But at that point, it was then that I decided, okay, well, I don't want to, can't go back to film. I don't want to go back to working in an office as a PA. So I'll just start working as a therapist. And it just started doing it part-time.
Right. Fantastic. Yes. So it's really, I'm getting the feeling that, you know, that inner, the chi that you talked about earlier, there's a divine, there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and the reason why you, the TV and video stuff wasn't working, because that's not what you were actually destined to do. You had acquired all this personal experience and professional knowledge, and it was asking you to do something else with with all the knowledge that you'd acquired for yourself. Because there's nothing better than somebody who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, can actually talk about it. Because I mean, there's a lot of people out there, you know, you read all the books and got all the zillions of qualifications, but until you've actually experienced it, there's nothing the same. So when you're talking with clients, there's an amazing authenticity and groundedness in you. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So how has it been since 2006 for you, working in the field?
It's been interesting. It's been very, very challenging, because what I've realized, and it's taken me actually 11 years to really start realizing this, is that what I do comparatively is very cutting edge. It is very, very different to the way that our society looks at how to deal with illness. And I remember one of my colleagues and mentors saying to me that he reckoned, I don't know where he got this statistic from, but he said that it's 0.1% of people are doing this sort of work.
Really?
So not 1%, 0.1%.
Wow.
Now, obviously, I can't, you know, I don't know quite where he got the statistic from, but it really is a small percentage of people who really understand that if you have a physical problem, it's actually not due to something physical normally. It's due to something metaphysical, which means just beyond physical. It's not a woo-woo term. Metaphysical just means beyond. So it's about looking at lifestyle, values, beliefs, behaviors, emotions, mental patterns, all that's, you know, the past.
And having been through that experience, and kind of banging your head on the door, on the wall with the medical profession who were not helping you in that side of things. You know, that gives you an appreciation of what it's like. I mean, because you mentioned 2006, and I'm going ting, 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 because that was the time that I actually did a wellbeing show up here in Whangarei, so 10 years ago. And looking back on it now, it was well before its time. It's just far too out there. You know, I had about 15 different consultants, all talking about various different modalities and things like that. And in that 10 years, it's been a really slow process for people to understand the scientific basis of it, but that is coming more to the fore. And whether it's because I'm more ensconced in it now, but the ball seems to be rolling and it's getting out there. And I think for me, with my passion for the environment, there's a real reflection there. You can see that the planet's sick and it's actually has an effect on us and we on it, sort of thing. And for me, it's that connection to the, you know, it goes back to nature. You know, like Einstein said, look deep into nature and you'll find all the answers. But we're still looking and we still try to think that we humans are so much better than nature and we know so much more.
I think what's sad and what frustrates me personally is that the answers have been there for, you know, centuries.
Yeah.
The answers are here right now in a very modern way,
yeah.
But still there is quite a closed-mindedness at a societal level, which is mainly unconscious, to being open to this sort of information.
Yeah.
So, for example, the other day, I was working with a client who is actually making phenomenal progress. I mean, her life is just completely transformed in the last 3 months. But even so, and it still even happens to me sometimes, is she's still programmed in the medical system way of looking at things of, okay, if you have a physical problem or a physical issue, then you've got to look for a physical cause. Yeah. And so she was telling me about, even though she knows what she knows now from, you know, us having worked together, and she knows the correlation between, you know, overdoing it and not, you know, unhealthy work-life balance and emotions and all that sort of stuff. She totally understands that. And yet she was sitting there telling me, you know, I had really bad hay fever, and I had to go to the doctor and I had to get antihistamines, and then it went into really bad vertigo and dizziness. You know, and I couldn't even stand up. And you know, so she was still going off to the doctor to get this, you know, to try and get something for it. In other words, just dealing with the end result. And I said, so you know that I'm going to say to you that there are probably some other reasons for that hay fever and for that vertigo. And she says, well, I would have been disappointed, Kim, if you hadn't said that. And so we explored it, and within 10 minutes, she'd seen actually what really had caused her body to go into an imbalance to actually experience the hay fever and the vertigo. So constantly we're just looking in the wrong direction. We've got to turn around and look for the bigger picture, because the physical is only one aspect of it, but there's a whole bigger picture and we need to see this bigger picture.
Yeah. It is that default thing, isn't it?
It's default. And even I, you know, can still catch myself just going into that default of, actually not so much now, but, you know, for many years even, you know, oh, I've got to go to the doctor, or I've got to go to a physio, or I've got to go to a chiropractor or acupuncturist or whatever it is. And it's like, no, I need to go inside. I need to look at what is it that my body is telling me through these symptoms that it's not happy about.
Yeah. Well, I can associate on a level, not so much the physical, because I've been fortunate that I haven't had any physical problems or anything, but you know, when the brain starts to work overtime, I hit that default thing and go back to old patterns. Because I had to go to the doctor's beginning of the year to get him to sign a certificate to say that I could stand on one leg, because I was booked for my trip to Antarctica, and I said, so I must be healthy because I haven't come to see you in 10 years.
That's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm just intrigued. What is the root cause, or is it different for everyone for hay fever?
Oh, it'd be different for everybody, and that's the thing, is that you can get, you know, there's a few books out there saying, you know, if you have this, it means this, and there is, you know, definitely an element of truth in that. But I found that you just got to look at each person on an individual basis. But if you think about the interesting thing about it is that every symptom, there's a physical manifestation but it has a metaphysical meaning.
Yep.
So, for example, if somebody is, I know this isn't hay fever, but if somebody has got a gut issue,
yep.
and we look at, well, what is the physiological function of the gut? Well, it's take in food and to chunk that food down into bite-sized chunks, by chewing, and then to swallow that food, and then to digest it, and then to take what is good and let go of the rest, and then eliminate what we don't need.
Yep.
Well, the digestive system also has a metaphysical function of needing to do that as well. So we actually have to take life in, we have to take it into bite-sized chunks, we have to digest it, we have to take what is good from it and eliminate the rest. Well, if we're not doing that, if we're not digesting our life and we're not digesting our emotions, then they just get stuck and then they start causing a problem in the digestive system. So, hay fever is all about, it's an allergy. So it's like, okay, well, who or what are you allergic to? Who or what are you reacting to?
Mm-hmm.
That will be something along the lines of that.
And what's getting up your nose?
Yeah, absolutely. And all the phrases like that, they absolutely, I listen carefully when people describe their symptoms,
yep.
because how they describe their physical symptoms is actually what's going on emotionally. So when I was asking her to describe the hay fever to me, she said, well, it's really irritating. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's been irritating you?
Yeah. And the language itself has an amazing, words have power and things, and it's all different perceptions of a particular word, sort of. And with my work, I just give people some values and things, and if they're asking me questions, I said, well, you can use the dictionary in the same way that I can, but I'm not going to explain it to you, because when you do it for yourself, you will pick something up and you will be drawn to something that actually resonates with you, because different words, the same word had different meanings. Although there's still a concept, it has a different pull to it. And so it's important for people to actually go in on themselves, as you're saying, and see what it is for them, and to digest it and see, well, is that good for me? If not, chuck it out. So it's amazing. The more you find out about it, and the more you want to, you feel like the less you know. It's fantastic. So where to put for now for you?
Well, it's just a continuation, really, isn't it? Clients, programs, online programs, corporate wellness seminars. It's just one day at a time. I'm not one of these people that has great big plans in my head. Never been a person like that. It's more, how are things evolving and unfolding.
And educating people, I think that's a big thing.
Well, I think for me, what I've discovered over the last few years is that, and by the way, I just wanted to add about the pain thing. I remember, sorry, I know I'm backtracking, but a lady I worked with once, she was in her 70s, and she had been in hospital for 3 months having all sorts of tests, invasive tests and all sorts of things for excruciating abdominal pain. And at that time, that was many years ago when I was doing body therapy. But what we came to in the second session, what was revealed was that she had not processed the death of her mother, and she'd not been able to say goodbye to her mother before she died. And she was holding all that sadness and pain she hadn't let it go. And it was literally energetically lodged in her large intestine.
Yeah.
And as she let that, as she tapped into that sadness and recognized it and acknowledged it and felt it and allowed it to move, the pain just disappeared in an instant.
Wow.
And that is just like a typical example of how emotional energy gets trapped in the body, and it creates huge physical pain, but there's nothing that can be found physically. And this goes on all the time. People, that's why they go to the doctor. They go to the doctor, so they can't find anything wrong with me. But I know, I've got either this pain or this exhaustion or whatever it is. I'm not making it up. Often they'll go be told you're a hypochondriac.
Yeah.
It's actually shocking, some of the stories that I've heard. And this is honestly no disrespect to doctors, because I think they do a fantastic job. But some of the things that I've heard that doctors have said to their clients is literally quite shocking.
And the amount of time that people, because I read recently one of your testimonials was a lady who's in her mid-80s, and she'd been suffering with something for same period as you, 25, 30 years. And you just think, wow, what a waste of life, you know?
Yeah, it's very sad. Yeah, she was 88. She's actually had 55 years of chronic fatigue and 25 years of depression, and is gone in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I've got chills. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
How liberating.
Pardon?
How liberating.
Oh, just speechless, really, when, you know, because I actually wasn't even expecting her to make progress that quickly. So I was just blown away when she told me that. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all.
And so rewarding as well.
Yeah.
From ourselves, you know, from your own point of view as well.
Yep. So I'm sorry I did interrupt, and now I can't even remember what you were asking me.
I was just saying, you know, we were talking about the medical profession per se. You know, yes, they do a fantastic job, but there is so much more to it, and people do hold on to stuff for such long periods of time, and it's just it's actually really about getting people to reach out and ask.
I think what's really interesting is that the body has an incredible ability to put up with pain or fatigue for a long time.
Yeah.
And the thinking brain, what we call, you know, the mind, will come in and rationalize away that's okay.
Yeah.
And then get used to it. And I remember when I hurt my back, because I'm just writing my book at the moment, and it's quite interesting because all these memories and stories are coming back. And when I was in London, this is before I knew any of this, and I was cleaning the windows of my third floor flat, and I sort of bent round at an odd angle and put my sacroiliac joint out. I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that I'd done something to my back. It sort of twinged and tweaked, but it wasn't terrible. But then the next day I started to get stiff, and over the next few weeks I was getting stiffer and stiffer until one day I couldn't put my sock on. And I thought, this can't be right. But I had gone for weeks, just, you know, sort of not being able to bend properly and move properly, but putting up with it because I didn't know better. And I just tolerated it. And then by the time I got to the osteopath, and that was one of the first, I think, natural therapists, probably the first natural therapist I ever heard of and went to. And he said to me, oh, you should have come to me straight away, because now your body's compensated for that injury. And then that injury was to haunt me for years afterwards. Right. You know, thousands of dollars spent going to osteopaths, because I left it so long. Whereas if I'd gone straight away, it would have, you know, helped the body to restore balance much quicker, and then not to keep putting my back out. But also at the same time, it was many years later that I actually discovered the real cause of why I put the back out. And of course, metaphysically, the back is all about support.
Yep.
And it was because I'd never felt like I had support.
Yep.
And since I've dealt with that issue, I don't put my back out, touch wood. You know? It's like, so, you know, the older you get, you can get healthier.
Absolutely. And there's so much wisdom, isn't it? And the key word that I picked up there was compensating, because it accumulates over time without us noticing. And I think that one of the big things with all our work is actually that increased awareness of what's listening to the body, and allowing, as opposed to pushing down and just going on regardless.
But that's what we're conditioned, isn't it? It's like on the television with the ads. It's like, okay, if you've got a headache, take a pill and just get on with it. You know, it's much more important to stay busy. If you've got the flu, just take this medication and keep going. No, if you've got the flu, that's your body trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
You know, it's trying to tell you that you need to go to bed and you need to rest. Yeah. And then you actually need to look at, why did you put your body so out of balance in the first place that you ended up having to get the flu?
Yeah.
It's completely, you know, we can completely eliminate so many illnesses if we follow these laws of health.
Absolutely. So you've a very wise, healthy woman nowadays. So what advice would you give your much younger self?
To me, it's all about self-love and self-acceptance. And because every client that I've ever worked with, when you drill down to what is it that's causing them the stress, the illness, the unhappiness, it is a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-love, which then leads to the behaviors of not looking after oneself and pushing oneself too hard and people pleasing and all that sort of stuff. So it would be to know that I'm okay as I am, that I'm lovable, I'm good enough, I'm worthy, and to believe in myself and trust in myself, and also know that I'm connected to everything, and that I'm safe.
Cool, excellent. What a lovely way to finish off, that you're safe. Thank you very much for your time today, Kim. You've been a source of inspiration, and wish you well with your journey on finishing your book.
Thank you. Thanks, Philippa.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.